Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Spiritual Youth Circle. My name's Nick, and I'd like to say that, we are the Spiritual Youth Circle. So we're a group of high school and college students who get together to discuss spiritual topics every Sunday. Today's talk show is titled Forgive for Love, and we're going to discuss forgiveness and how it's connected to compassion. Just so you know, this is being live streamed, and we hope to reach out and inspire as many youths as possible to discuss topics like what we're about to discuss. So, as a bit of an icebreaker, I'd like to open up the floor and ask, what is something you're looking forward to this summer? Anyone have anything interesting going on this summer that they like to share?
Yeah, sorry, it took me a moment there to get my headphones on. But this summer, I'm actually leading a reading call for children, and we're going to be reading stories from it's a book series called Diary of a Traveling Monk. And he goes to all of these different places and he sees all these cool things. And so I'm leading that call, and every Friday, me and the kids, we're going to read one story from the book. And a lot of people have shown interest. So I'm really excited. I think it's going to be a good summer. Yeah. Maybe I can popcorn. Should we do that, Nick? Yeah.
Yeah, let's popcorn.
Okay, great. Anshu, I'll popcorn to you.
Yeah, I would say just not something specific, but because everything's opening up, I'll be hanging out with my friends a lot more and meeting them. And I'm pretty excited to do that because it's been so long. So yeah, I'll popcorn to Jeremiah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say this, something similar to, and looking forward to, because yeah, it is, everything art is starting to open up, and that's pretty exciting. And also just to rest and have time for myself too, and so that's nice. I'll popcorn to Anishi.
Yeah, probably just going out more, spending more time outside, and yeah. I'll popcorn to Yash.
Yeah, just I guess same thing as everyone else been saying. Just with everything opening up, it'll be nice to hang out with friends just to see people again. I heard that Costco is gonna have free samples again, so that's gonna be exciting. Yeah, that's all I have. I'll popcorn to Jessica.
I don't know if is she here? No,
I think she just dropped off.
just
So
dropped
maybe
off. How about
Bart
Brett?
can go.
Yeah, kind of similar to everyone. I'm also looking forward to getting back with my friends and hanging out with them. And then also I'm gonna be starting coaching younger kids basketball, so I'm pretty excited to do that. Just work with younger kids, and I think it'll be fun. Nick, do you want to go?
Yeah, thanks. So first of all, those things sound really nice. I think we can all agree that with things starting to open up, it's just way more opportunities to do things we've been missing out on. Yeah, I'm looking forward to taking a couple classes just for fun over the summer. So I'm taking a class on sword fighting that I'm really looking forward to. That's what I want to do this summer, just swing some swords around. But that's really great. But so thanks for sharing, everyone. We're going to get a little bit into the topics of forgiveness and compassion. And we're going to do that by first watching this short clip, and then we'll popcorn around, have a little discussion about it afterwards. So this is a clip called Snack Attack. So yeah, super cute, right? So what are some impressions from the video, some reflections, maybe questions? Anyone have anything? I'll go to Yash. How about you start?
Yeah, the first thing that came to my mind was like the guy with the headphones, like was he was being pretty chill. I guess he was very like he wasn't too attached to like the fact that he had the food. He was like willing to share. He didn't really mind. Even at the end when there's one left, even though it was his, he like still broke it in half, give it to the lady. And so yeah, that was really chill of him.
And let's popcorn it around.
Yeah, I'll popcorn too, aren't you?
Yeah, I was thinking that obviously stealing someone else's cookies isn't correct, but even though she had such a strong desire to keep all of the cookies and she was so angry, in the end, all her efforts were ultimately futile, and she wasn't actually able to keep all of it. And yeah, that's what I was thinking. And maybe the only reason she was really angry was because of her perspective on the situation. So I will popcorn to Bharat.
Yeah, I also kind of noticed that like she had this greed to have all the cookies. Like even though at the end, like the guy with the headphones, he split it, his cookie in half and gave half. She wanted the whole cookie, so she just ended up breaking the other half. And it shows that like she really had this intense desire to eat like a whole cookie for some reason, and it kind of led to her anger. I'll popcorn to Jeremiah.
Yeah, I think that was like a really good representation of like, yeah, the desire and just like expecting something. And yeah, like when you do use a vending machine, you expect to get it, and just from not getting it right there, then and there, it can be so frustrating when you have the expectation it should work this way, things should work for this way, and especially when it's for my favor, you can be so easily like attached to that, and once you kind of figure out that, oh, sometimes the vending machine just doesn't work, uh, and like maybe not everything works in like a very linear way, and like maybe it's more complicated, it can be it can be easier to kind of let go of that expectation of how things should play out, especially when it's for yourself. Yeah. Do we sell popcorn? Popcorn to Ancho. Oh wait, you already went, right? Sveka, have you gone?
Yeah, I'll go. Yeah, my first reaction after that video was, damn, I feel your pain, like to the lady, because sometimes, or like a lot of times, I get into arguments with my brother or my mom or something, and I'll be like strongly arguing for one point, and they'll be like, no, it's this, no, it's that. I'll be like, shut up, like it's this, you know? And then like maybe the next day or something, it'll be like, oh yeah, it was that. And then I'll be sitting there like, damn, like, why was I so passionate about it? Why did I even like argue so strongly for it? And so the old lady was sitting there like feeling stupid in the train. I was like, I feel you, like been there, done that. Okay, anyway, I will popcorn it to Anushree. Have you gone?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, oops. Okay, Nick.
No, I haven't yet.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I also thought the guy with the orange hair was really nice, that he like offered to split the cookie in half and everything. And yeah, at first I didn't realize that the cookies weren't the ladies, so I was kind of getting like mad with her because I thought the orange guy was just trying to take the cookies from her. And then at the end I was like, oh, so did everyone go?
Yeah. So yeah, I thought it was a really nice clip, an example of just how compassionate that young man was being, and I liked what Anshu said about like perspectives and how that really matters. But getting into the talk more deeply and concretely, Shweka is going to be talking about forgiveness, the first step in this process we're talking about.
Yes, thank you, Nick. So yeah, forgiveness. I think the first thing to consider is, what does proper forgiveness look like? And so like, what's your first reaction when someone hurts you? I think for a lot of us, that could be like immediate anger, or it could just be like you get quiet and you sulk, or it could be like you shut down or you ghost them, or like we all have so many different like coping reactions when we get hurt or when someone hurts us and we feel angry. Um, and I think that we can all think of a situation where someone did us dirty and then we feel the need to get back at them. Like, I can personally think of a couple instances that to this day make my blood boil. But did they actually get away with it? And in fact, like, all of us have been on the other side as well, where we did someone else dirty. Did we actually get away with it? Spoiler alert, none of us got away with it, and none of us ever will get away with it, because there's something magnificent in the air, in the universe, in the world, and it is called karma. And basically it means that, I think like a basic definition we all know is that what the good we do comes back to us, the bad we do comes back to us. And basically we're all living out the results of our previous actions right now, both good and bad. And nothing we do or anyone else does can escape the laws of karma. Everyone gets what they earn. And so when someone does you dirty, or they hurt you, or they do something, they mistreat you, it's like there's already an equalizing force in the universe that's going to repay it to them at one point or another. So now that we know that, it's kind of like, oh, the fact that we need to get justice is gone because the universe takes care of that for us. And so then it comes to the point where what's holding us back from forgiving, knowing that it'll be equalized eventually. And there's a powerful quote I heard a couple of weeks ago in another class, and somebody said, like, forgiveness is for yourself. It's letting go of all hope for a better past, because there's nothing we can do about the past. There's really not much we can change about the future. All we can do right now is the present. And so what we can do now is maybe forgive for ourselves, and also know that we've also been on the other side where we've also been rude or mistreated someone or something bad. And so like know that it happens, and we're all on our own journey to bettering ourselves and being a better person and being more intentional and compassionate and caring. And so with all of that, maybe forgiving is the best choice, you know? So I do have a question for you all. So knowing that karma is an effect, how does that make you feel about forgiving someone that hurt you? And also in general, how does it feel to forgive someone, like for yourself? So yeah, anybody have any thoughts on that?
I was thinking that when you mentioned how the laws of nature automatically returns back whatever someone does, then there's really no point for us to take revenge because the situation is already being handled. And so forgiveness is really the only option that we have that makes any logical sense. And when you said how forgiving is done for yourself, I thought that was a really nice point because, I mean, forgiving isn't necessarily to make the other person feel like, oh, okay, whatever I did was fine. It's for your own well-being so that you can let go of the situation and just find happiness yourself. So
Yeah, I also really like the point about forgiving being for yourself. And I see a lot of times when I try to forgive someone, and when I finally forgive them, I'm like letting go of a grudge that I've held, and it feels like relieving. So, and also I'm regretful that I didn't forgive them earlier, and I held on to that. So, yeah, I like that point.
Another thing that I had in mind too was that um, it's an experiential thing where you can feel the hate when you don't forgive someone. You have that hate inside of you, and it doesn't feel nice. And I know from experience, and that's just like one way of like kind of relieving that sort of like idea of like karma is like relieving that hate. And yeah, and so that really does ring true for forgiveness.
Yeah, I just had a realization from what you were saying, Shweko, which is that when you forgive someone, you're not letting them off the hook for what they did. In fact, you're not responsible for making it right at all. That's what karma's for. So it's not like you're excusing their behavior. But what you are doing when you forgive them is that you aren't holding on to resentment anymore. And you're kind of freeing yourself. And I think that's so powerful.
Yeah, yeah, just to go off. Hi, everyone. Sorry, my internet keeps dropping. Really good points, everyone. I just want to say, like, when you forgive, it's almost like you unburden yourself with anger. Like you just kind of let go, kind of let go, let be, that saying. And I think when you kind of come to that realization that you can just kind of let things go, not accepting like it's all right, but just kind of be like, okay, this has happened. How do I move forward with it?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think okay, a couple of years ago, I like went through something and someone did me really dirty, and it took me a long time to forgive. But I was talking to a mentor of mine during that time, and I was telling him, yeah, like they did this, like I feel so angry, but like sad at the same time, and I'm like, I'm having a really hard time letting go of it. And he told me, he was like, like staying angry is like drinking poison and then hoping that the other person dies. But the other person is literally living their own life. Who is dying right now? You, because you're drinking the poison. And that's why you need to forgive and let it go. And now, like, it's been a couple years, maybe 2 or 3, and I look back on that situation and I think I finally, like, I've let it go. Like, I've forgiven because I look back and I say, oh, thank you for that experience because it taught me so much, like, so much. And so I think a lot of forgiving is kind of finding the lesson in that experience. And when you find that lesson and realize, oh, you got something out of it, it hurt, but you got something, then it becomes easier to make peace with the situation. Because we are all a mixed bag of good and bad. And so is everybody else. So yeah, I think it's just choose to appreciate what you learned and let go of everything else for me. Yeah.
That's an awesome point about finding like the silver lining and what went on, for sure. Veda said something interesting in the chat. They said, it feels painful to hold on to a grudge and not forgive. I think not forgiving hurts us more than it does the other person. We hold the heavy burden while they let go of the event. I think that's really interesting too, because forgiveness is something you do for yourself. The other person might not think anything of it. They might not even know they've offended you, but it's in your head. It's kind of like the video, right? Like the young man, he might not have known he was being offensive to the old lady at all. In his mind, she's like, wow, she's really hungry. Like, might as well let her eat some cookies. But he didn't know she had this whole notion that he was eating her cookies. He didn't know anything about the cookies in her bag. So the whole offense was kind of concocted in her mind. And she had to come to like the correct perspective in order to forgive. Only then was she not like frowning for the first time in the whole video.
Yeah. Okay. I think, Nick, do you want to lead us into compassion now?
Sure. So that's actually a great transition. I just wanted to make sure anyone else didn't have anything else to say. But yeah, so we're talking about forgiveness, how it can lead to compassion. But I wanted to talk about really what compassion is and what it isn't, because we get some terms confused with compassion, I think. They're very similar words. There's pity, which is when you feel sad to see someone suffering, but it doesn't mean you're actually like moved to do anything about it. You're just like, oh, geez, that stinks. But that's like really where it ends. It's somewhat shallow. Then beyond that, there's sympathy, which is when you're involved enough to want someone's suffering to end, but you're not necessarily motivated to do anything about it. You're just like, oh, I wish it would be better. And you can even experience sympathy positively, like when you are happy that things are going well for someone. But compassion, which literally means suffering with, is kind of similar to sympathy, except instead of just wishing that it would go better for someone, you're actually motivated to do something about it. Is that you understand someone's going through some kind of pain and that you want to do something to help. It's really a super deep emotion. It's been described by one of my teachers as love manifested towards a suffering beloved. And like, if we think about the video, right? The boy, the young man, he goes beyond pity, right? He sees that the old lady's hungry and he lets her eat. But and in that sense, he goes beyond sympathy as well. He doesn't just want her to satisfy her hunger, but he wants to help her do so by sharing his cookies with her. He even like wipes the crumbs off her skirt. He's being compassionate. He really sees that she's suffering in some way and he wants to help, even though, that means he gets fewer cookies. And Surabhi said this. She couldn't be here, but when we were talking about this video earlier, she said that opening the bag, like in the video, is like opening your heart. It's where compassion comes from. Compassion is born out of sympathy because we're appreciating when others are doing well or wanting their suffering to end. But the thing is, sympathy is just like a mental exercise, it's just cognitive. And if it's unexpressed behaviorally as compassion, then it's not so deep. Compassion is really where you bring it all together, where you don't just want good things to happen for someone, you actually feel motivated to do it. And it's making the most of that feeling in your heart, that sympathy, when you want to make a positive difference. And I think nowhere is this more clear when making an apology. I think apologies are a place when we really bring our compassion to the forefront. And I want to make apologies distinct from forgiveness too. Because forgiveness, like Shweka said, is something you do for yourself. It's something internal. But apologies are something you do for another person. When you apologize, you actually want to help the other person move toward forgiveness. You want to help them do that internal thing by explaining where you're coming from or what you did, what mistake you made. And I'm sure we've all experienced shallow apologies where someone just says sorry and there's no feeling. And what is it that makes that so dissatisfying? Like, we might have different emotions and obligations that motivate an apology. And in my experience, I think the worst is when someone apologizes just to satisfy some third party. Like, yeah, exactly. Like when you, like Shweka just said in the chat, when your mom makes your siblings say sorry and they're like, sorry, but they don't really care. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. Like, can anyone else recall a time when they had an apology that didn't feel satisfying? That's actually not a rhetorical question. Anyone have any examples of that? Like Shweka, that was a really good one. I can think of. Oh, go ahead.
I just remembered, I won't exactly elaborate on the example, but I just remembered one time someone after a while came and apologized to me. And then the next sentence he like asked he needed like my help for something. So I was just realizing that the only reason he apologized is because he wanted my help. Otherwise he wouldn't have apologized. So
Ouch. Anyone else?
Yeah, I can think of a couple times where someone says sorry, but then like, I guess he's sorry for what they did, but then there's no change after what they said sorry for. So it's like, if you were really sorry, then why are you doing the same thing again and again? Yeah, and I saw a tweet actually on Twitter like a year ago or something. I don't know why I still remember it, but it said, apology without change is simply manipulation. And I thought, damn, that hits the spot. Ooh. So yeah.
That's heavy. It's like gaslighting, right? Anybody else?
Yeah, I don't really have an example I can think of, like off the top of my head, but yeah, that a similar code too kind of came to me, and I thought about that too, and yeah, I just like think about that every time like I do like something that's kind of like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that, and like I tell the person that I shouldn't have done that too, like sorry, but then I like think, oh, how can I make sure that I don't do this again, and yeah, and it's like it's like a continuous kind of like learning situation where you where you start to be conscious, like, oh, like I did this before, like I'm doing it again. And yeah, and it's really good to think about that in that way. How can I change this behavior so that I don't repeat it?
Yeah, I like that, Jeremiah, where you're like, maybe if people don't change their behavior immediately, they might still be trying. Like, I guess we can't expect someone to completely like change, do like a 180 right after apologizing, especially like, I don't know, like younger people that are less mature. It's harder to make that change. I was just thinking about all the times I gave really crappy apologies, like I can think about like my brother. I was really mean to him as a kid. Like I was a little older than him, a little bigger than him, and I would like kind of bully him. Like we get into like little fights, and I'd always win because I was bigger, and it would only end whenever he started crying. It's like not good. And it was so bad. Like he would always like he'd be like my parents or like my grandma would come, and they'd be like, "What happened?" And he'd be like, "Oh, nothing happened." Like he would always defend me. He was super sweet. And then like I would get forced to say like sorry, but I never really meant it. Like I kept doing it. It was so bad. Oh dang. So we could have said her brother would rat her out. My brother's super sweet. I don't deserve him. But Veda said something about their experience. They said when you defend yourself during a fight at school and later you have to say sorry, even though you didn't attack the other person. Not a personal example, but yeah. Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, like at schools, they have a zero tolerance policy on fighting. So even if, you know, you're just defending yourself, you have to be like, oh, I didn't mean to defend myself. Like, yeah, I get you. Yeah, but I think we can all agree that the best apologies really come from a place of compassion where we want to help the other person. Sometimes we might say we're sorry, not because we agree that the other person's right, but because we care about them. We want them to feel better. Like I can think about um, examples like this with like family or in relationships where, you know, I don't feel like I actually did anything wrong, but I know that saying sorry will make the relationship function better. So I do it anyway. And it can still be a legitimate apology because a compassionate apology values the relationship and the other person's feelings more than ego. Because what's worth more, the relationship or being right? True apologies try to make the other person feel better and help them possibly go through the process of forgiveness. It's kind of like to spur that on. If they're holding that grudge, it's a way to kind of help them move towards forgiveness. So say we do feel compassionate for a person and we want to apologize. What does a good apology actually look like? Well, one of my teachers gave a 5-step plan on how to properly apologize, and I'd like to run through it. I think it's really valuable information. So step 1, sincere appreciations. You have to appreciate the person you're apologizing to and appreciate qualities that they actually have, not just flattery or empty platitudes. You want to actually tell them what's so nice about them and why they're important to you. You got to start there, because if you don't start there, then you're just going to be bitter. Then you have to actually verbally apologize, say what you did wrong, and show that you knew you made a mistake. So you have to say, like, let's bring it back to that movie. Let's say that the woman could have apologized to the young man, right? How would she do this? First, she'd have to say, oh, well, I think you're so sweet. You shared your cookies with me. It shows that you're really, really genuine and you really care about me. Then she'd have to say, I'm sorry. I understand that I was hoarding cookies and I just assumed that any cookies in my vision were mine. That was my bad. Then she has to explain what she was thinking, show her limited understanding, even if it makes her look more guilty. So she'd have to say, like, well, I assumed that the cookies on the table were mine, even though I didn't even check my bag. I was just so caught up in my routine and how angry I was about these cookies that I just wanted to eat them and I didn't even think about it. I didn't even think about you as like another person. You were just there and I saw you as this like thief, and that's why I got angry. Then step 4 is to actually say you're sorry, to commit not to do it again, to own it, and to actually feel bad, feel some remorse. So then she'd have to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And this whole committing not to doing it again, it is more the case when it's like with someone you actually have a relationship with. Here, the video doesn't fit so well because it seems like those people didn't know each other, but like maybe they would form a relationship as a result of this apology. You'd be like, I'm not going to assume that any food I see is mine. I'm going to like double check my bag. And that's really what comes to step 5, is to say what you're going to do to make it right. So she'd have to say, I'm not going to assume that I can just eat your food. I'm going to maybe actually talk to you instead of just grabbing at things. Like there's so many things she could have done. And I think if we relate these 5 steps to situations where we might have done something wrong, or what we could have done instead, and how we can make it right. Not what we could have done instead. That's a mistake. Take that back, because we're going back to what Shweka said earlier. We can't hope for a better past. This is how you own the past and how you in the present make it better. So this is kind of on the flip side of what we were talking about before. Have you ever received or given a great apology? And how did that make you feel afterwards? What do you think it did for the relationship? And you don't have to go into detail about the specifics, especially because we're streaming live, but you might not want to share that. But yeah, what's like an awesome apology you've received? And how did it make you feel? What did it do for the relationship?
I can go ahead and share. But yeah, basically, yeah, I think I have really good friends actually. And like obviously we butt heads and get into arguments or like they say something and I'm like, really just say that. But later on, like they always send like a apology text, or like they'll just say sorry in person or when we FaceTime or something. And like I always feel like, oh, their sorry was genuine. Like they really didn't mean to hurt me, but they're sorry that they did. And the fact that they cared enough to think about it and like write a whole apology or say a whole apology, I'm like, oh, you care. I appreciate that you care, and it's okay. Like I understand it's just a misunderstanding. And the fact that like you have that understanding now that, oh, they care, like they don't want to hurt you, they're sorry that they did, like makes the relationship stronger because you know that like they have good intentions for you, you know.
That is actually so sweet.
Jessica, I think your internet's breaking up. Although I did hear you say that it's sweet, and I agree. That's like super nice to have friends that are that close and egoless enough to
Just like reminded
apologize.
me. Yeah, and mine, we were kind of going back and forth, but when we actually really sat down and apologized, our relationship now is really, so it's always starts with a good apology and kind of being a little bit large-hearted.
Well, I was not able to piece all that together, but thank you. I heard something about Shweka being sweet and something about good friends apologizing and showing that they're large-hearted, and I think that's all right. That's, it sounds. I think I got some of it, but I can tell that you have a great relationship with those friends. So that's really cool. How holding that space for apologizing has improved you all's relationship. Anyone else?
Yeah, one thing that I've actually realized is that when apologies come like sooner after the incident, it's easier for me to forgive them because I feel like as time goes on, that like grudge gets deeper and deeper, and that relationship ends up getting like further and further away. So like when apologies come like not like the instant after, but like even within like a few days, it's a lot easier for me to actually forgive them. And yeah, just like I think it makes it the process a bit easier.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to say like yeah, when you create a culture within your friend group of yeah, it's okay to be a bit vulnerable. It's okay to apologize honestly and like own up to your mistakes. It just allows people to get that much closer together. So that's awesome that you have that. Jeremiah, were you about to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say that I really like that. I think it was the third part uh, about showing your limited understanding, because as you practice that, you really start to like broaden your like perspectives, and you start seeing their perspective. I mean, you kind of see this when you're like close to friends or family, like you kind of basically know how they think. And exactly, yeah, and it starts to like bring up miscommunication and sheds light on like, oh, this was actually not the case. I know you were thinking this way. Oh yeah, and it's just like it's a whole clearing up of miscommunication, and that's always a great way to come to forgive someone, because it wasn't your fault. It was just the miscommunication. So, yeah.
Yeah, I really like the miscommunication point. Uh, I think that adds a whole new layer to what we've been talking about, where forgiveness and compassion come together through apologies, where it might be that both parties did something wrong. They both kind of are responsible for the miscommunication. But one party, if they want to seek a better relationship, ought to get to the point of forgiveness first, at least to the degree to where they're not holding on to that grudge and they can actually like, yeah, be the bigger person and cross that like boundary that's been created and open the platform for an apology to help the other person be a bigger person too. You know, it does take that bigger person to be like, oh, you know, I do have some fault in this, and I don't, and I understand they have to think this, maybe not say it, but they have to think, yeah, maybe they did something wrong, but I don't want to stop that from getting, or I don't want to have that get in the way of our relationship. I want to move past that, and even if that means I have to apologize first, it's for the best. I think that's a really cool point that you two brought up.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I like the second part where it was talking about show that you know your mistake, and that part that you were saying, valuing the relationship over being right. Because I think a lot of times, like in my like past like problems, I think that mostly got in the way of the forgiveness, and they just wanted to be right more than taking the step and forgiving. So
I personally don't have any like I don't have any personal examples from my own life, but there's two things that from what everyone else was saying that like there's 2 points I kind of like. The first goes back to what Shvika was saying earlier. I think like sometimes someone might have done something like you might have gotten a problem with someone, argument, whatever happens, right? And like let's say I might have like moved on already, but like the fact that they apologize, it just shows that like they care, like they care, they're thinking about it, and like it shows you like the value in that person, like they actually care about you, and like I guess it kind of distinguishes them from like someone else maybe who didn't like really think about it, didn't come back and apologize. That's one thing. The second thing was I think apologies in general, no matter like when they come, if it's like soon or late, are beneficial to the relationship in any way. So like if they come, like let's say something happens, someone apologizes right away. That's cool. They realize there's something wrong, like they realize there's something wrong, and like they quickly apologize and make like a sincere apology. That's nice. But even if it comes like after a long time, maybe after a week, a month, or whatever, like it's still in some ways I think that's a little bit more interesting because it shows that they've been thinking about it for like that long, or like something came back in their head that made them think about that, and they're like, oh, maybe I was doing something wrong here. But yeah, it kind of what Shweka said in the chat was a good point. It kind of shows how much they value the relationship in general.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm trying to think of personal examples, and I think one place where that's the most clear, at least for me, has been in like like a committed, like romantic type relationships where it's me and another person, and we're just trying to figure out how to relate to each other and love each other, and a lot of the time that doesn't look so pretty, and we do make mistakes because we're noobs, we're not so mature, and a lot of that is just like constantly making mistakes and constantly trying to make it right. Like, this is kind of a tangent, but I I I don't believe that there's such a thing as like soulmates where people fit perfectly and like they don't have any issues at all. I don't think that's real. I think it's like a Hallmark card kind of thing. But really it's just like some people that are like mostly compatible and they try to just make it work. And that process of making it work involves like sincere apologies, and it involves forgiveness a lot of the time. Um, and that's really what brings the two people closer together. Are those moments where you have to be vulnerable enough to apologize. Like if the two people are just trying to maintain like their I'm right position, kind of like what Anushu was talking about. Yeah, it won't work. It's like that person becomes a debate partner, not a like romantic partner. Anyone else have anything related to this? Niharika, I saw you just joined. You're probably a little confused.
Yeah, I'm sorry I joined so late. I had
It's
a
okay.
meeting that ran so late. I feel sad that I missed so much.
Well, maybe I can recap it a little bit just to bring you up to speed. So we're talking about forgiveness and how that leads to compassion, and that forgiveness is really something you do for yourself, not for the other person. You kind of give up a grudge. And then compassion is this state of being where you see that someone's suffering and you're motivated to help them. And then we talked about apologizing and how that is an expression of compassion and just kind of what that looks like. So that's really just what we were talking about. probably doesn't explain it too well, but at least you're mostly up to speed.
Oh, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I have a personal situation that kind of like it first was kind of like a grudge on my end, but I apologized anyways, and that like settled the relationship, and it led to a lot like a loss of tension. And I feel like even when you think it's not your fault, but you like self introspect and you ask for forgiveness or you give forgiveness anyway, it can make things a lot better.
Definitely agreed. So true. One last point I'd like to bring up. Um, something that maybe you've heard, especially something that's going on, like maybe not so much right now, but like with all the like healthcare professionals responding to all the like increased COVID cases and so on, like especially a few months ago, a year ago, this concept of compassion fatigue, where people get basically mentally exhausted from caring for others so much. And we were brainstorming a bit, trying to like, what is the solution to this compassion fatigue? And it's really to have kind of a detached compassion where you want the other person to do well, but you're not so tied up into it and like into the result that you really hope it goes your way. Like this especially ties into apologizing. Like if you apologize, but you really want the person to forgive you in that moment, your apology is not going to go so well. It's almost like the example that Anshu brought up earlier, where that person apologized and then asked for something. Like they're just apologizing so that they hope that he's like going to be friendly enough to help, but they don't actually care about making him feel better. That type of apologizing, that type of compassion is really tiring to do. Like not only is it not effective, like it's not going to make Anshu feel like he's motivated to be so nice to this person. At least it's not helping. It's also this like burden that you have to carry while you're being compassionate. It's actually stopping you from being completely compassionate. Has anyone had this experience of compassion fatigue? I know
Oh
some.
yeah,
Yeah.
big time. Oh my gosh, the world has been on like fire for like a year, bro. It's like there's actual fires, and then there was like COVID here, and then there was COVID there, and then there was COVID there, and I was like, I feel so bad for everybody, including myself. But yeah, I completely relate to that. And then I was like, I really should care more. But then I was like, I don't have it in me. I'm caring about so many things right now. But yeah, it's been a tough year. I think like this year has really exposed compassion fatigue for me.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting point about how like it can be overwhelming with so many different things that you can think of that are like going wrong. And the way I can, or at least the way I kind of understood how to overcome that compassion fatigue is kind of ask myself, oh, what is my responsibility? What is my situation? What can I do? And only that. It's like setting a boundary for yourself. Like, oh, I don't need to do more than what I'm responsible for because this is only my situation. So in the case of like a relationship, it's not that you have to, yeah, because a relationship is like a two-way relationship. There's two parties. It's a two-party system, and both has to reciprocate. And if it's all one person doing like all the work in a relationship, then it's not really a relationship. And yeah, it's kind of doing your part and asking yourself, oh, what am I responsible? And so if the person you're in a relationship with does something wrong, or you do something wrong, you can ask for forgiveness, and they don't need to, or yeah, you can be detached from them giving you forgiveness. It's only your responsibility to apologize. You don't need to expect anything more, and it's because that's the situation you're in. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Like the fatigue comes from putting more on your shoulders than you actually need to. Like really, it seems like this shouldn't be called compassion fatigue. It should be called like pity fatigue or sympathy fatigue. But like compassion itself, since it has this like behavior component built into it, and if you actually understand what you're supposed to do, it shouldn't really fatigue you, right? You should just be able to do what you need to do in like a loving way towards suffering people. That's a really nice point.
Uh, do you guys think that sometimes forgiving someone or like forgiving people like way too easily can easily like turn you into a doormat, kind of?
That's a really interesting point. Yeah, Jeremiah, you can.
Yeah, the thing about being a doormat, the way I kind of understood it is that when you act as a doormat and let the other person, how do I explain this? When you let the other person, when you act as a doormat, it becomes predictable, the situation. Like you'll know, oh, they're gonna be pleased. They won't ask anything else from me. And actually, when you act as a doormat, you actually gain control of the situation in your because you want that control. Does that make sense? In most situations.
I think we're using two different definitions of doormat here.
Mhm.
I think what Anusher means is like when you're a doormat, it's like when you let people walk all over you, like a people step on a
Right,
doormat.
right.
So you're saying you get control from people walking on you?
Yeah, in some weird way, in like the long grand scheme of things. Because if you think about it, right, doesn't it help like lay out, oh, the sequence of events? Oh, if I do this, if I become this for this person, it becomes like predictable. And does that make sense?
Oh, I think what you're talking about is that you have to set boundaries.
Mhm.
I think that's what you're getting at, which I think is how you answer it's how you don't become a doormat, right? Is that you set boundaries. So like certain things you just don't apologize for because that's the boundary. So like you only apologize when it's appropriate. I think that's the answer. What does appropriate look like? That depends on the boundaries, I guess. Just on the specific relationship.
Yeah, the way I think about answering Anushi's question is that I think forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Like because you forgive someone doesn't mean, oh, I'm gonna let you back into my life now, you know? Like if they do you dirty, you forgive them for yourself, but you don't let them back into your life for them to do you dirty again, you know? Like that's on you. What is that quote? It's like first time, that's on them. Second time, it's on you. I forgot it. My mom says it all the time. I think it's like an old like proverb or something. I forgot it. But yeah, yeah. So yeah, I don't think forgiving makes you a doormat. I think it just makes you a more like whole person inside because you're not filled with like remorse and anger. But yeah, definitely like don't let people who aren't good for you back into your life, but forgive them for your own sanity. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
There it is. Yush said it. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, can't put the blame on you. That's from a song, isn't it? That one? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming to this week's edition of the Spiritual Youth Circle, where we talked about forgiveness and compassion. Forgive for love. Make sure to tune in next week, where the high school team is going to be leading a discussion. Um, if you haven't already, especially those of you out on Facebook or on YouTube, please sign up on spiritualyouthcircle.com. where you can get the Zoom information and you can connect and hopefully attend a meeting. It's super nice to see you all. I hope you have a great week.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.